Hey guys, what's up? It's a Culture Detective here, investigating your favorite movies. And lately I don't really have a lot of movies or TV shows or albums to review, because I've been so focused on studying and filmmaking, or more like just going onto film sets. But one movie I just finished like 10 minutes ago is Denis Villeneuve's 2013 film. Um, what's it called again? Enemy, right? Starring Jake Gyllenhaal. And I would just like to spend a little time talking about this movie because it is an interesting movie to talk about. First of all, what I've immediately noticed is that Denis Villeneuve is so freaking prolific. Just in the 2010s alone, he has released 6 films. Let's see if I can name them all. Um, Incendie, Prisoners, and Enemy released in the same year. We have Sicario, we have Blade Runner 2049. And then there's one more. I forgot. There's one more. It's probably really obvious, but it's not. It's not hitting me right now. Arrival. Duh. So he like directs and releases a film, and I say release as if he's like an indie director or something. Not. But he directs a film very frequently, like once every 2 years, or even less. So that's something that I really look up to because a lot of film projects usually take years to complete. A lot of feature films usually take 2 to 3 years to complete pre-production, production, post-production, festival circuit. But I really respect people who just like pump it out like a well-oiled machine. So shout out to Denis Villeneuve for being able to do that, for being able to pull off Dune Part Two within like what 3 4 years, even including the pandemic itself, which is very impressive. But anyways, I digress. Back to the film Enemy. Um, yeah, for the first 20 minutes of the film, I feel like I'm watching an over glorified short film, and I can't really pinpoint the exact reason why it feels like a short film, but it feels like a short film. The very simple premise, the very basic settings, the very, very small cast, and just the lack of fancy schmancy, production, design, or cinematography wise. And music is okay. It's almost like trying to be There Will Be Blood by Johnny Greenwood, but less interesting, like way less interesting. So obviously, Enemy didn't start off very interesting. It just starts off like one of those short films you would make when you have writer's block. So there's this one guy, and his life is boring, and he lives in a boring apartment, and he has a very basic blonde girlfriend, and he's a professor and history, blah blah blah, and it's just very very bland. But we have the premise, and it does get interesting and fun from here on out. So Jake Gyllenhaal watches a movie on his laptop, and he finds an extra, like a background actor who looks exactly like him, and then he tries to stalk him. He like for some reason he gains his obsession. So for a while, this movie to me is about obsession, is about finding something interesting in your boring life, which is an interesting direction to take. But I feel like that's not really the thing that this movie is trying to go for, anyways. But it is a very interesting topic to tackle. So Jake Gyllenhaal stalks the actor, who's also played by Jake Gyllenhaal. The main character's name is Adam Bell, a history professor at a college, and the guy he's stalking is some random actor who hasn't really done anything. And their lives sort of intertwine more and more, and it sort of hits a climax, and it just turns into this very cryptic ending, which I will talk about a little bit later. But for one, I must say, this movie is really yellow. I feel like the cinematographer, the DP, or maybe Denis Villeneuve was like, let's, yeah, this movie has a lot of bland settings, but what if we make it yellow? Oh, cinematography, baby. Yellow is an interesting look, especially when we have these. drone shots of Toronto, but yellow, and it's foggy. It actually looks kind of post-apocalyptic. It looks like Mad Max. I really like that. But every single shot is yellow as hell. And I feel like it, color-wise and visually, it limits the film, so it feels limited. It feels like we're in a limited space. The cast is already small. The scope of the story is already small. Visually, it's also very small. So that's why this film feels very small overall. It feels insignificant, especially given that Prisoners came out the same year, and Prisoners is way more interesting and dark and way more captivating of a story. And I think Prisoners is shot by Roger Deakins, I believe, but Enemy is shot by another DP. I don't know why. Yes, Prisoners is by Roger Deakins, but Enemy is by a different DP. So that's something. Um, Another thing is the ending, right? So yeah, it is confusing. I love confusing endings, though. I love confusing movie endings. That is my thing. But there's a difference between movies that pretend that it's going to reach a conclusion, and then movies slash TV shows that sort of suggest that, hey, don't even bring logic into it. So, say Persona or Possession or Twin Peaks or 2001: A Space Odyssey or The End of Evangelion. All of these films slash TV I've just mentioned are stories that basically tell you, hey, don't look for a logical ending because that will defeat the point and the vibe of the story. Whereas in Enemy, throughout the whole film, it sort of awkwardly sits between, hey, there's going to be a logical ending versus, hey, there's not going to be a logical ending. So when it reaches the ending, is it a satisfying, ambiguous ending? No. It's just an ambiguous ending, not necessarily in a satisfying way. It's not a terrible ending. I don't hate it. I don't think it's that great either. It didn't blow my mind or anything. There's a lot of room to read. There's a lot of things to read in Enemy, especially the spider motifs. The opening scene, sees a spider being crushed, and then spider motifs throughout the entire film. Giant spider looming over Toronto. That is a great shot, by the way. I love that shot. But it's just I feel like the film doesn't do enough to invite us to read this film in that way. Usually, if movies are gonna be illogical, at least it implies, hey, audience, try to read this film with a grain of salt and not take it at face value. The same way 2001: A Space Odyssey, with the opening shot and with the monkey sequence. And why the hell am I comparing freaking Enemy to 2001 anyways? But I'm just saying Denis Villeneuve could have done something like that, but it's also not his script, so I guess I don't know, or is it? Actually, I don't know. I need to check. But it's not a bad film. It is certainly a very interesting premise. Will I watch it again? No. Feeling a light 7 on this thing. So if you watch Enemy, comments, like, share. Comments below, let me know, subscribe if you want more. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.